I think that would surprise people, the competitive nature of Chris Stapleton.
No, I think I seem more relaxed to people. I'm glad they give me that credit, but I'm probably not. I take the music very seriously. I take the obligation to the people that have bought tickets very seriously. I take, doing the best I can do very seriously. Sometimes I get that right and sometimes I get that wrong, but I think that's being human.
Today's show brought to you by Roka. Rob and his whole crew down here in my hometown of Austin, Texas are absolutely making the coolest sunglasses, prescription glasses, just chilling glasses out there. Love what they've built. They've completely reinvented the category. Glasses optimized for performance, even if it's your reading glasses, which I can't go anywhere without. Yeah, they perform. They've got the no slip, they hinge. Total game changer for me. The riding glasses, unbelievably lightweight. You literally forget they're wearing them. Best optics on the market. No other sunglasses compare. Crystal clear, fog resistant, scratch resistant, and they never slip, no matter how sweaty you get. And for those who know, you know, I get sweaty. Not only that, Roka's working with the Special Forces. They test their stuff with the best athletes around in the harshest conditions on Earth to make sure that they're going to work best for you. Like I said, hand-built right here in our hometown of Austin, Texas. The Forward listeners get 20% off. Just go to Roka, that's R-O-K-A, Roka.com. Enter the code FORWARD at the checkout. That's Roka.com. Code is FORWARD. Also today brought to you by AG1. Morning routines are critical to me. One of the most important parts of my routine is drinking my AG1. I drink it before working out, right before making my coffee. And it makes me feel ready to take on my day like I'm doing something good for my body. And as I always like to say, it's like taking control of your health. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support and is backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body. I completely trust AG1. This is the one product that I support my whole body health with. It is AG1, and that's why I've partnered with them for so long. It's easy, satisfying, and what a way to start your journey. Let's talk about AG1. You get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase. Just head on over to drinkag1.com/forward. That's drinkag1.com/forward. Chris, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, man, no problem.
It was great to see you last night. We don't have to get too much into the show. Everybody loved the show last night. And for those listeners, you filmed what we would call a taping of Austin City Limits.
Yes.
It's so crazy because people, I think they, generally speaking, associate that brand and that name with a festival that their kids want to go to.
Right.
And the origin story, which of course you talked about last night, is this is the 50-year anniversary of the television show.
Right, 1974.
1974.
And Willie Nelson was the pilot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've had, and it's gone for, this is now the second location of it.
Yes.
First set.
I never played the original one.
Right. The first set was over on campus at the School of Broadcast. And it was cool. I went a couple times. I saw Garth Brooks there. I saw Coldplay there. Coldplay was one of the last bands. Saw Lyle there. And it just got too big. But again, most people associate it with the festival,
which is now very big.
Very big.
Yeah. Started in the 90s, I think.
It started. Well, that's a fun origin story that I can tell you too. It's we don't have to. Yeah. A lot of these listeners kind of know that origin.
I mean, ACL will love it if we talk about it a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you offline. But I was. Let me just say, is I had sort of this unique place in the origin story of the festival.
Oh, wow. Which
is wild. Yeah, which is goes back to Austin back in the day. But we started it, and I say we because we all started it, and about 15 years ago. So it's not that old, but maybe it's been 20 years. Anyways, but the significance of doing the taping, is that a thing? I mean, a lot of kids. I remember when I was a kid.
Well, it is for me. Like right, exactly. I don't know that because I grew up. A lot of my heroes are Willie Nelson and these guys that have played that show, or one of my favorites is the Stevie Ray Vaughan one. I don't know if there's a really iconic, my favorite ACL moment is when Stevie Ray Vaughan's playing a solo. He breaks a string in the middle of the solo. He's still playing the solo. His tech comes out with another guitar and mid solo they do a guitar switch. Mm-hmm. And if you close your eyes and listen,
you don't see
you don't hear the switch. It doesn't feel like a pause in the solo. It's the kind of the pinnacle of musicianship and road teching happening at the same time. And to have those two things on film, it's kind of, those are super high level things to watch. I watch it with maybe a little different eye than somebody else would. Somebody else might go, "Oh, that was cool. He switched the guitar," but very high level on both ends of high level of difficulty.
Somebody can watch that on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I think. I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but it's one I would watch over and over and just kind of be amazed. Like, how did he? First of all, he's playing an improvisational solo,
right?
And so, but he also had to think about a string to avoid at that point. Yeah. That was broken. I don't remember which string it was, but he's having to avoid a string, which also probably throws your guitar out of tune a little bit because the tension changes on the guitar. Never sounds like it does that to him.
Yep.
But he played really heavy strings, so that probably helped him out. But to see that switch happen, it's a man taking off a guitar, putting on another guitar while playing a solo and have it sound uninterrupted.
Yep.
It was just one of the most high level things I've ever seen.
And as you know, it's not live. It's taped for television. So he very easily could have said, "Well, broke a string. Let's start the song over."
Sure. Yeah, you could do that. But I think he also knew that, when they pulled that off, I'm sure that he knew that he was showcasing a very high level of both of those things.
We would not be talking about it.
No, we wouldn't be talking about it. That's probably one of my favorite moments on ACO.
Wow. Have you seen his statue down on Town Lake?
I don't know that I have.
I think it's worth seeing while you're here. It's really, it's very close to where you're staying. I know where you're staying.
Yeah.
It's very special.
Yeah.
And it's huge. Yeah. It's right. I mean, to walk from your hotel would be a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Or if you drove, to the closest spot, it's worth seeing.
Yeah. Well, I'll go check it out.
I'll share with Jason where it is. It's neat.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy sort of, this town, this was a music town. I do think it's evolved and changed.
Sure. As towns do.
As towns do. And as they do. When they're cool places.
Right.
If they're dumps, then they never evolve. And,
right.
But Austin is anyways, he was the king, and the stat. It's worth seeing while you're here. But
he was one of those guys that was a game changer,
Yeah.
And whose life was tragically short. But from just a guitar player perspective and a musicianship is the word I keep using, but really high level, in ways that you probably don't fully appreciate because he made it sound so easy.
Right. Yeah, he had some big old mitts too. You said he played heavy strings. Apparently his hands were just. Yeah,
I don't know all that specific, but maybe.
Yeah.
But I think he tuned down a half step and played really heavy strings, so that was part of it on a strat.
It's always, I've seen you, somebody asked me last night how many times we've seen you guys. I think it's probably 7 or 8 times, and the band has never changed that I've seen.
Oh, really?
In those.
We have different configurations of that band, although the band is more permanent than it ever has been.
Yep.
With the exception of Mickey hopping in and out.
Mickey in and out.
Because
Morgan occasionally in and out.
Sometimes, but she's around most of the time.
I saw one when she wasn't there. I think maybe the show here in Austin, she was with the kids.
If we got 6 kids or we have 5 kids, and so we kind of, when we have to split duties, she'll step out.
I mean, 5 kids I got 5 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah,
but y'all's are all. Y'all's. That's
right.
I got two waves. So
we have it's 15, 13, 2 6s and a 5. So it's a lot going on, particularly when school's in. It's, whatever virus is going around schools, going around the house all the time.
And Waylon's gotten into cycling. That's one thing I never thought I'd hear you tell me, that your son's gotten into cycling.
I have to say thank you. I want to say thank you on your show. People would not know this otherwise. You were kind enough. You were coming to town, like, "Hey, I'm coming to town. I'd like to ride with your son." And I'm so grateful. And I said, "Well, would you be willing to go ride with his team? He's on a mountain biking team at his school." And you were kind enough to come and show.
Yeah, of course.
I cannot tell you how many of those kids have come up to me and go, "Thank you for setting that up for us. And I said, well, Lance was kind enough to come do that. So that was, and it really meant so much to those kids that you came and did that, and it really inspired me.
I loved it. That was not a chore at all. I mean, it in the jam session afterwards with the kids, which you came to, which you missed the ride, but
I can't keep up with you guys on the ride.
Some of these kids are strong, but I'll never forget the one. You're in a Wayland's is like you. He's pretty chill, but there's in a group of kids, you always see the one you're like, oh man, this one's full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a couple of those on the mountain bike.
Yeah, I identified one right away, the little one. And I will, as long as I live, I'll never forget this kid raising his hand at the Q&A afterwards and saying, and I mean, he was probably I
think he's in 7th grade.
7th or 8th grade, yeah. He says, I got a question. What was the lamest sponsor you ever had? I mean, I about fell over. I mean, that's such an amazing question. Yeah. And you knew it would come from him. It was, but no, I had fun. I was certainly happy. Coach was great. He kept calling me coach on the ride. You stop and talk to the kids. Oh, what do you think, Coach Armstrong? I was like, felt like I needed a whistle and a shirt, but it was funny.
Do you often ride with groups of kids, or is that something that you do every now and then?
I don't, but I'm certainly happy to. I mean, I ride with some young professional kids that are just getting into the sport. But your son's part of NICA, right? Yes. Which is a high school cycling development program that is not that old, right? But has really taken off. Yeah. And I've been so impressed with how well the traction it's gotten. Yeah. But I love that. You get all different skill levels. They ask funny questions. Yeah. They like to show off. I mean, the kids going down some of those hills.
They're all riding wheelies and stuff.
Yeah, that was like, which I can't do. Yeah. I'm like, all right, you got me there. Like,
you can't ride a wheelie?
I cannot ride a wheelie. And I have spent the last 3 or 4 summers at the beginning of the summer, because we're up in Colorado, saying, all right, I say this to myself, I'm going to learn how to ride a wheelie this summer. So if I had to learn how to ride a wheelie, I'm sure that I could. Right. And I don't
know that it's useful for anything other than
showing off. I mean, it's kind of cool. Yeah. I'd be down with that. So, but I would go to like the local soccer field or something. You can't start learning on a road. Right. And that would be pretty.
Would you ride a wheelie on a road bike though? Like, is
that's kind of the next progression. No.
I've never seen that.
There are guys that do it. So there was a very successful, incredibly successful Hall of Fame career, a kid named Peter Sagan, who was a great sprinter, a great rider. But he'd be in the back in the mountains and he'd just fuck with people. Right, he'd be 20 minutes behind. He would come across the finish line in the Alps or the Pyrenees, riding a wheelie on a road bike. Yeah, and it's the kind of thing you watch and you're like, well, God, that would be so cool. Honestly, that's the reason I said I'm going to learn how to ride a wheelie. Right. You just asked me about it, but I would watch Sagan do it. I said, well, I want to try that at least on a mountain bike.
Yeah, that seems like the place to start.
Yeah. But I want to go back to the band because I love the band. I love how tight it is. Obviously, Morgan's in it. I love when Mickey's there. I think it's a different show, certainly when those two are there, at least from a fan's perspective.
We've played every show from, there have been shows, particularly early on, where it would just be me and a bass player and the drummer, me and JT and Derek. And then Paul, for a while, the steel player, he was there about half the time because he's a legend. He's a legendary, noted session player. He's played on everything you can think of. Look him up, Paul Franklin.
From Detroit, Michigan.
From Detroit, Michigan. Yeah. And, his first session was a Parliament, George Clinton, when he was 15, so, and he's 70 now. Yep. I have the two oldest guys in the band, Mickey and Paul, are 70 and 73, which I pride myself on just having these legendary guys in the band. It's such a cool thing because they have all these great stories and they inform the band with their experience in that way,
Well, that's, but I'm sure they get asked to go on the road with a lot of people. I mean, I do think that, and that's maybe another part of the conversation. I mean, you're the guy, you're the it guy. Right? I mean, Mickey Raphael, who's
I'm a guy.
Well, I'm a fan, so I get to say the it guy. I mean, this is a big honor for them. I mean, if Mickey spends most of his time with Willie Nelson,
Yes.
and his side hustle is playing, going on the road with you.
His joke is when Willie and I are in the same place, it's like his wife being in the room with his girlfriend.
Right.
So
I bet that is his joke because he's Mickey. And for the listeners, so this is part of my original podcast, The Forward, but then I started the cycling show called The Move, which Mickey's a big cyclist. And
that's how we met, actually, is you were guests of Mickey's at one of our shows. And that's how we got introduced. That was in Colorado, yeah.
The
first time I met you, I think, was in Colorado.
Well, you had to split after that show up in Northern California. And then we met at Jazz Aspen.
Yes.
We hung out there. Yeah. But so Mickey was listening to the show, or the cycling show.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you mind if I do a little, send you some music for your intro? So the intro of
It's very Mickey to say.
Is Mickey. So if you ever listen to the Move, that show's called The Move. And for y'all at home listening, I mean, I didn't just go find some, harmonica dude. That's Mickey Raphael.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
It's a big damn deal. So
there aren't many famous harmonica players that are just harmonica players. He's probably maybe the only one.
I agree with that. I agree with that. The other thing the warm up is so serious for you guys. At least that's my impression, right? Warming up before the show, isolated time.
For me, in particular, the guys maybe a little looser, but
right.
I have very set times I do that, and that's all kind of new stuff to me. It used to be a shot of something and go, but I'm 46 now. It's not necessarily the
less shots,
more warm up.
Well, you take it very seriously.
I do take it seriously, and I expect myself to be the best version of myself, and sometimes that's not up to par for my own standards. But I
have heard from a very trusted source that because I think that would surprise people, the competitive nature of Chris Stapleton
with myself.
Yes.
Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I seem. I think I do seem. Look, more relaxed.
I love it.
I seem more relaxed to people than. Yeah.
I love it.
I'm glad they give me that credit, but I'm probably not.
Yeah.
I take the music very seriously. I take the obligation to the people that have bought tickets very seriously. I take. Doing the best I can do very seriously. Yeah. And sometimes I get that right, and sometimes I get that wrong. But I think that's being human. But I don't probably need to do some work around that. But it's
I agree. I'm with you. Like there are times it's like just fucking chill out, man. Like it's and it does perhaps require work. Just kind of breaking those things. I've done a fair amount of that, but breaking it down.
Excuse me.
That was funny. I have to say that when you were going to play Crosswind, and you said to the crowd, any truck drivers out there, and there was
sometimes at my shows there's truck drivers at my show.
I understand. And when ACL the taping, when the actual show started, there would have been a lot of truck drivers in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Well, in 2024, they're like, everybody looking at them like, shit, I don't know. Yeah. And then you keep going down like, well, do you like stuff that truck drivers bring to you?
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of a bit that I do as a setup for that song. I'm hedging my bets with each one of those phrases. Yeah. You got a lot of times there's truck drivers and there's people related to truck drivers. And then I always say, do anybody out there that uses things that truck drivers use every day? And that's all of us. So that leads into, the country music category of truck driving songs, which is one of my favorite things. And a song that we have on this record, this current record that's out, that's the first kind of truck driving song that we've done. And there are a lot of cool truck driving songs over the years. And hopefully that one will make it into the truck driving playlist for somebody.
Yeah. Talk to me about, because I've certainly obviously never done it, but how do you go about, and you sort of touched on it last night a little with Tennessee Whiskey, but just to write a song, I mean, does a song Is it a thought? Or is it a chord? I mean, how does all this come together? Like we all sit at home or in our cars or at a concert listening to a song. Like I would have no idea how to write a song.
Well, I wish there was a way to say, this is how you do it. Mm-hmm. I think I had a buddy who used to say, you can't kind of work your way into being a songwriter.
Right.
But if you are a songwriter, you can get better. You can write better songs more often if you kind of work on that.
Because you started out as a songwriter.
I started as a professional musician. My first gig was being a songwriter.
Right.
That was my
wrote
entrance.
For some Kenny Chesney, George Strait.
Yeah, a lot of people, and then the other genres too. Adele, Ed Sheeran. A lot of diversity in what I've done as a songwriter over the years, and I'm proud of that. And I do like. It's different if you're writing. There's two ways that happens. If you're writing with an artist for a project, obviously they have some notion of where they want to go, or you can help get in there and kind of shape that.
Yep.
And I love being in that kind of mix because it lets me put a different hat on. I don't have to be whatever.
You don't have to imagine yourself playing that song.
Right. I don't have to be in there. And but also I get to prop up somebody else's vision and maybe sprinkle a little bit of whatever I have in there. And that's so fun to me. And then the other way, when I was just a songwriter, it was very workman mentality. We would show up at 10 o'clock or something like that, and
wait, PM or AM?
AM.
Okay, dang.
Or sometimes PM. Like I would write. Or early days, I would write 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Because I had this gig, and you're very much a contract worker when you work for a publishing company as a salaried songwriter. You have a year that you have a job. They pay you a salary against future royalties. And this is going to be very unsexy to peel back all these layers.
I love I have in my notes to talk about the economics of songwriting. I mean, it's something.
Well, and so as a songwriter, when you're in that gig, your job is to write songs that an artist who has a record deal will cut, and that will generate royalties that will keep you a job.
Right.
And then they would pick you up for another year.
But you participate in those royalties, or it's
well, at a certain point, yes.
Yeah.
And it just depends on the deal that you make with the public. There's so many variables that go into those deals. A lot of that is how you negotiate those deals. But it really comes down to the job is you write song. If you get cuts by artists, you keep a job for another year.
Yep.
So it's very much a year-to-year thing. Very few people that have that job have like, here's your 10-year contract. Here's your, there's none of that. It's if you had 2 years guaranteed out of something, that would be a really good.
So
contract.
they're not songwriters that have written something that's as we know it's played all the time. It's just mailbox money. Or
that happens too. When you get to a certain point,
that's what I was thinking.
When you get to a certain point in it, yes, there are royalties that are generated, particularly if you've written hits on top of hits.
Yep.
And there are guys who've written, 50 number ones or things like that. Those guys, they're not worried about their job. They're just
walking out to the mailbox.
But they also are, they're very hardworking guys. They're hustlers. Like a lot of the guys who are really good at that game, they're looking for the guy with a record deal. They're looking for the next guy with a record deal. They're looking for the guy who's the biggest thing in the world to go write with. And they're very good at working that way. And they're also great songwriters. Yep. There's two elements to that. I was never a great hustle guy versus, I could write songs and get cuts, but I was not the greatest at. I think I pitched a song to maybe an artist one time. Yeah. And they said no, and I felt real stupid about it. So I was just like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'll just let the publishing company handle it.
Yep. And then SteelDrivers came not long after that.
Well, that came out of songwriting. Right. The guy that I wrote the most songs with, who's no longer with us, his name's Mike Henderson. He would say that we had these perfectly good songs sitting around going to waste. So we both like bluegrass music, and he was a great blues guitarist. So that was really what his thing was. but he also played mandolin and liked bluegrass music. So part of it was just like an exercise in, I want a band to practice mandolin with, and also maybe we can go the goal was to get a weekly gig at the VFW or something where we could go, once a week and have a little fun, play some Bill and Road or Flat and Scruggs songs and go back to the house and move back to our songwriting gigs. And the other guys in the band and ladies were session players and had other music gigs too. Yep. So it wasn't intended to be a band that got a deal or did anything.
But it had a following.
It got a following, and,
Definitely had a following.
We wound up with a record deal and made a few records. There's still a band that operates today. I'm not in it. Mike's not in it. But as in true bluegrass tradition, sometimes the bands carry on with different cast members.
Yep. Well, I remember when Traveler came out, and I was it's a good friend of mine, Chad Mountain, and he lives in LA, and I said, man, you got to listen to this record. And we were out there in his car, and I put it on, and he heard your voice.
Now, did Mickey tell you about it because he was on it?
No, Mickey.
Because that would be Mickey would be good at promoting that way.
Yeah, he didn't. But I played it for him, and he said, and he loves music, and he said, well, this sounds like the guy from SteelDrivers. And I said, well, it is. Yeah. And, so my point is there was enough of a following there that a guy like Chad could say, no, I know this voice, because it was all about the voice, right? But it was distinct enough that and then the rest is kind of history for you. After Traveler, it was just.
It was a different ballgame. Well, but that record came out in May the 5th in 2015.
Right.
And my goal was to sell 20,000 records on that record. And I actually this was a big risk for the record company to take. And I have to give Universal props in this way, because I came to him, we had we did the thing where they cut a couple sides. I had a record deal that preceded that. Mm. And I cut a whole other record before that record with a different label head. And so a new guy came in. The day I finished my record, that first record that I did, the guy that was running the label, Luke Lewis, came in, sat down and listened to the whole record. He said, man, I love it, but I got to tell you, I'm not going to be here next week.
Okay.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And,
right.
And he was like, well, I'm leaving the company, and this other guy, Mike Dungan, is stepping in. Mm. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, usually what that means is when a new label, if you want to talk about some business side stuff,
right? Yeah.
That just means cleaning house a lot, particularly for guys who are in my position.
Yeah. He says, I don't care what Luke liked,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that, and, there's a certain degree of that I don't know. It's just like you're not there signing or whatever.
Right.
But, I sat around for 9 months, and then they were like, hey, you want to cut a few sides with Tony Brown? And Tony Brown's a legendary producer. And I said, okay. Because it was radio silence for about 9 months.
Yeah, which is a long time.
Yeah, it was just a long time.
Yeah.
And then Mike finally, because he had a lot to organize. When you come into a company of that size and you're the head of it, there's a lot to do. I'm not saying he was ignoring me necessarily, but I was lower on the list of things to do when you're taking over a company like that. And he came in and he's like, well, I don't hear any of this, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, and then I don't know what that meant, but it didn't drop me necessarily. And then they were like, hey, let's cut 3 sides with Tony and see what that was. We had one single that we put out with Tony, which was What Are You Listening To? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know that song.
Oh, yeah, I do. I know every song.
And it, it died at 46. I did the traditional things. I went to all the radio stations and played their charity events and shook their hands. And I was, some of them were very gracious, and some of them, maybe didn't care if I was there, and they shouldn't have. Mm. But it didn't work.
Right.
And so finally I looked at, I asked Cindy Mabe, who was kind of Mike's second in command. Mike had something, he was out of the loop for a minute. I forget what happened, but I asked Cindy Mabe to go to lunch with me. And I said, Cindy, here's what I would like to do. Here's what I understand about how I function. Can I just make a record and then put it out and go tour on it, and we'll see what happens? And that's what Traveler is.
Right.
And that's what Traveler is. And they didn't even agree to the whole record at that point. It was like, well, here's money for 6 sides. And we had 5 days booked to cut these 6 sides. And the first day and a half, we had 6 cut. And so I called Brian Wright, who was the head of A&R at the time. And I said, hey, come over here. I want you to listen to what we're doing. We're kind of in a groove. We would like to continue. I would like permission.
Well, you got 3.5 days left.
Yeah, we got time left to do this. If you guys are okay, just turn the real budget on and let's go.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And those 2 moments, allowed me to have that record out. And we sold the 20,000 or the 25,000 that I had hoped to up to CMAs in November.
Right.
And then I had made friends with Justin Timberlake through a mutual friend.
Yep.
And my wife said, hey, and they'd asked me to come play because I got some nominations on this record. Mm-hmm. And my wife was like, if there's ever a time, because Justin he said, I'd like to do something sometime. So she's like, if there's ever a time to call in a favor, just call him and see if he'd be willing to come do this. And he was gracious enough to come do that. And the performance did wonders for us. But
incredible.
We also won everything we weren't supposed to win. Yeah. And that night it felt like a bit of I don't know the word for it. I don't want to say a coup, but it just felt like we were
breakthrough, certainly.
Yeah, it was a real, maybe we built the fire, but the match was thrown on it. And then everything was really different. Yeah.
It's interesting, the competitive. I mean, you sitting there doing the math, hey, we've got 6 tracks and this is great. We're on to something. It's a day and a half. They bought 5. We got 3.5. That's the competitive side too. Like most people just say, well, I guess that's it, but just sitting there saying, I have to act on this, which I think is amazing. Like calling the guy like, hey.
Well, I mean, I had known Brian and I still know Brian, since he was the guy working in the tape room. We'd kind of come up together, me as a songwriter, him through the record company side of it. So we had this friendship and I could be real candid with him. Yeah. He's the guy that asked me to, sign a record deal to start with. It was under Luke Lewis, but he's the guy that took me to lunch and said, hey, man, why don't you make a country record? And I'm like, well, let me go ask my wife if she thinks that's a good idea. And then, like I said, the rest is history, I guess. But
back to Timberlake, because that was, and if a lot of people saw that, and if you haven't seen it, you just need to go on YouTube and watch it. And then the video for Say Something, I think was what, just after that, or
that was a little past that. That was for his record that he did.
Yeah,
just maybe a couple of years after that, and that was one of those experiences where I got to go and write for that record. I'm playing guitar on some of the other tracks on that record. I was in the room for a lot of those, a lot of that invention of that record, and it was a really fun thing for me to get to do.
But the video, I think the art of. I grew up, and we grew up in the day and age of MTV, and people invested tons, and the video release was a big deal.
Yes,
this is less of a big deal now,
right?
But that video for Say Something, and I loved it because it seems like it was not long after that Michael Keaton movie, but they filmed it in a certain style.
Well, it's one shot.
One shot. There's never look, we watch, whether you're watching a TV show, a movie, a commercial. This podcast
and live audio,
there are cuts, right? So you will, if somebody walks into a room, they will cut the film and they'll reset cameras, and the way that was shot, and that's the best music. I honestly, it's the best music video ever.
Well, I think that's it. Thank you, first of all. But I cannot take a whole lot of credit for that. Justin called me and said, hey, I want to make a video for this song. We're going to use this thing. I was like, okay, well, he's Pop World and they do elaborate things. I kind of stand there and sing a lot. And he's like, okay, we'll just do like a performance video. And I said, oh, I can do that. I'm totally down with that. We'll just stand there and play it.
Yeah.
Well, I committed to it. And then he starts presenting this idea where we're walking around this building, getting on elevators, and it's all live one shot. It all of a sudden, to me, became this more complicated thing than doing something that we can stop and start. But I was looking at him going, man, I I don't walk around and play guitar a lot, you know.
I don't act. I'm not an actor.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause he is an actor.
Well, yeah, he's brilliant at a lot of things, but just to see the sea of people that had the audio challenges of that, because we were on, I guess 3 different floors, and we're running wireless things, and there's signals, and that mixed with the audio mixed with the filming part of it. And one of the crews, they were a French company, and I'm forgetting their name right now, but so there's language barrier things as well, and we're all doing this dance of trying to get this thing right, and we got it. Yeah, you did. But it was for sure one of the most elaborate things I've ever done.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, and just then the people on the other level, when y'all weren't if you're on the second level, the people that were up on the 4th level, I mean, it was, fuck, man, it was so well done.
And live audio. That's the part to me that I don't think people understand. We're all playing. We're all singing. That's all live audio. So what, it's plugged in and... Yeah, it's all live audio. That video is one shot live audio. So there's amps and yeah. Well, it's better for the crew. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Hell yeah. I would love to have been on the crew. Oh man, it was a huge crew. I don't know how many people were on that. It felt like maybe 200, maybe 300 people. Damn. And, trying to make all that happen. Yeah. Yeah. This episode with my friend Chris Stapleton, which by the way, I thought was amazing, brought to you by OneSkin. Now let's talk about dry skin, wrinkles, all this funky stuff. These are just a few of the visible signs of aging. Something that today's sponsor, OneSkin, knows all about. Now, I'm not overly concerned with aesthetics, but I do want to keep my skin healthy as I get older. And that's why I love their topical supplements. They actually help your skin feel and behave younger as you age. The secret sauce is OS1, which is scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with the thinning skin that often comes with age. Hey, don't just take my word for it. They've got over 4,000 5-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel size products. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off. Use the code FORWARD at oneskin.co. That's oneskin.co. And again, 15% off if you use the code FORWARD. Let's get rid of those wrinkles. Let's talk about Ketone IQ. Now, we often hear that fasting and exercise are good for the brain. HVMN launched the world's first drinkable ketone in 2017. Ketone IQ is their latest innovation on ketones with better effectiveness, taste, and cost. Ketone IQ delivers clean fuel that can cross the blood-brain barrier, supplying your brain and body sustained energy, focus, and sharpness, putting you in flow, lasting for hours. Special offer, 30% off your first subscription order plus a free 6-pack when you use the link ketone.com/forward. That's ketone.com/forward. Talking about Justin Timberlake, I mean, that's a collaboration, right? You've continued this morning. A good friend of mine, Liz Kreutz, sent me this collaboration with Pink. I mean, you love to collaborate. I do, and I like. I mean, I like to go into someone else's world. Yeah, the Morgan Wallen record, his last one, and then you love it. I mean, I love it too. I love it for us. I like it because I don't know what comes out of it. I think I don't always know. I don't know if people are going to see it as I don't know. I don't know what appeals to me about that. I want to see what I can do in scenarios that people wouldn't see me in. I think it's a good look. Yeah. I mean, I think it looks cool. I mean, it looks... And I feel very honored that people trust me with that. Yeah, too. That's your humble opinion and your view of it. But to me, it's like, oh, this person they're honored, right? If I can get Chris Stapleton to collab on this with me, well, then that's it, right? I mean, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I enjoy it tremendously. Who's out there you want to, obviously, it's a silly question because you can do whatever you want and everybody would say yes, but is there somebody you're like, Well, I mean, there's always heroes and legend guys that, Paul McCartney's on the list of guys that are still rocking that I would love to, even if we didn't make anything up or anything, just have a conversation with, like to understand.
Yeah. I was watching this on the flight home. I was in Nebraska yesterday and flying home, and I'm always watching stuff, and I kind of run through. You always get these periods where like, shit, I've watched everything, and you're looking and there's just nothing to watch. Yeah. And so I found this thing on Hulu that Paul McCartney and Rick Rubin did. Oh yeah, I've watched a little bit of that. That's it's good. Very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never really seen Rubin in that setting.
Yeah.
But McCartney, I mean, I don't know how old the guy is.
He's in his 70s, I think.
I mean, the dude is just, he's a picture of health. And just the way you've seen some of it, but the way he goes through and they break down all the different instruments and the phases of the Beatles, what they were thinking, all the I thought it was very well. It's shot in black and white.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Well, Rubin's fascinating to me too. I've never met Rick Rubin, but I am a huge fan.
Yeah.
Tom Petty Wildflowers is a Rick Rubin produced record, and that's my favorite record of all time. Yeah. So,
if there was somebody who's no longer alive, like if you could wave a magic wand and
I mean, Petty's one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's way up there. I mean, somebody like Aretha Franklin would have been not. She's my favorite singer of all time. Ray Charles. I mean, guys like that.
Yeah. Because your music
Waylon
is
Jennings, there are a lot of those because a lot of my heroes are no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yeah. You do anything with Chris Stapleton, who just passed last week?
I did. I got to, and I don't even know how it came about. I was on a John Lennon tribute in New York City, and I was slated to do, I think it was me and Sheryl Crow and Brandon Flowers sang one. I think he's the lead singer of the Killers.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I've heard of Sheryl Crow too.
Yeah.
I had to acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge it because
I forgot.
The listener is going, is he not going to say anything about it?
Yeah. Well,
good times.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry.
I'll gather myself. We can cut that part out if you need to.
No, we're not cutting anything out. Like I said, good times.
And then
Chris Stapleton.
And then Chris Stapleton and Willie Nelson were there, and we're going to do something.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I think, and I'd done a few things. I'd done a Waylon Jennings tribute with those guys. First time I met Chris Stapleton formally was at that.
Yep.
And then I'll tell you a funny story. The first time I actually ever stood next to him, but it's, so I got to get up and do a song with Willie Nelson and Chris Stapleton, and at that, and somewhere there's the video of that or audio.
This is 5 years ago, 2 years,
7 or 8 years ago.
So this is still, you're still going, holy shit, this is mega.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel that way. I still feel that way. Like even if I sit next to Willie Nelson or I'm talking to these guys that, I very much feel that way talking to those guys, any of them, or just standing next to them. The first time I ever stood next to Christopherson, there was a thing at the Country Music Hall of Fame that Larry Cordell, who wrote Highway 40 Blues, Ricky Skaggs, he's a great songwriter, great kind of bluegrass legend guy. He invited me. I'd been writing songs with him. He invited me. He's like, hey, I got to go play this thing at the Hall of Fame. If you want to come, it's just a bunch of people sitting around playing songs. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I show up, and it's like a who's who of bluegrass, and there's Mac Wiseman in there, and Jerry Douglas, I think or maybe Rob Ickes. Just a bunch of just killer players. I mean, there's probably 20 people sitting in a semicircle in the Country Music Hall of Fame, just taking turns picking a song, and everybody's kind of playing along and jamming. It's a super cool show. 200 people in the room maybe to watch. And there's an empty chair sitting there. So when they get around to the empty chair, they're like, well, we got a special guest tonight. It's Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton comes out and he goes, Johnny Cash told me this was his favorite song, and he played a song, and I'm forgetting what song he played at the moment. And the thing got over with, and I was going to go walk back up on stage and tell Larry, thank you for invited me to this. It was wonderful. It was 3 hours or something of this kind of just jam session, watching all these guys just go after it. And all of a sudden, it's just me standing on the stage, and all of a sudden, because I'm waiting him to come out of the dressing room, and he pops out Christopherson. And all of a sudden, I'm standing next to Chris Stapleton, and I'm just kind of looking over with speechless. First time I'd ever been really starstruck in a way, you know.
Neat.
And a lady came down and said, Mr. Christopherson, you forgot your goodie bag. And he goes, goodie bag? That sounds like something illegal. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I said nothing. I just stood there and stared at him like an idiot for, I don't know how long. It felt like an eternity, but I was just kind of standing on the stage, just looking. And that was the first time I ever, you know, felt really, really starstruck. Wow. And then I felt that way meeting Willie for the first time too.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, now that you got to know him, I mean, he's just such a normal, just the sweetest guy ever.
Yeah, he's great. He tells you a joke, and
he's
drinks coffee and
doing well.
Doing well, yeah.
I mean, this guy he's going to live to 100, which, you know, it would be a gift for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
I watched I loved the 60 Minutes piece you did. I thought it was, Morgan, your wife, told me that she hadn't watched it. So I said, I don't know if you watched it. It was excellent. I thought it was really well done. But they touched on, obviously,
sometimes I don't watch myself.
I'm with you. Why would you? I mean, talk about weird. Like, it's weird if you sit around and watch yourself over and over. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like then you have that's gross.
Right. If you need to review it for something for approval or something like that,
it's hard. I mean, even, you know this. I mean, with social media, you know, I have a guy who does it, and he'll send me this stuff. Say, hey, check this out. You know, what do you think? And I'm like, do I have to watch this? Like, that just grosses me out.
And just having capacity for it too, like mentally.
Right. Well, that's why I have somebody to do it. Imagine there are people that love to do it themselves.
Right.
But in the 60 Minutes piece, they touched on a little bit of what your upbringing, your love of sports, the fact that you were a valedictorian, which I think a lot of people were surprised to hear. Not surprised to hear, but like, that's a big damn.
I seem a lot dumber than that, for sure.
No, not. But I mean, there can only be one. There can only be one, right? And
actually, we had multiple ones.
Well, then I guess there can be a couple.
Yeah.
But they talked a little about what you grew up listening to, which that surprised me. You know, so there was some, the stuff that we've already talked about, but there was some rap and hip hop and, you know.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
All over the map.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 90s, and the 90s were a fantastic, 80s and 90s were a fantastic time for music. You know, like there were a lot of just varied and felt like really, I don't know, like, I don't want to say like the birthplace of kinds of music, or like really expansion of different, some genres that felt new to the world a little bit, you know, alt rock or and even rap in a lot of ways, like in the 80s and 90s, coming to the front of being a more mainstream thing. And so, and the evolution of hip hop and R&B and a lot of that stuff for me, it was all in the same pot, you know, like it was all in there, because we were inundated with those things.
And is it still that diverse, or has it gotten?
I still listen to the things I listened to when I was growing up.
So you're hearing your kids.
Well, I mean, they find their own way too, and obviously we have influence over that, but to some degree. But you know, particularly the older ones, like they're finding what their thing is. You know,
well, like, what would be your presets? Because I'll tell you what my presets are. I listen to Sirius XM, and I'm sure you do too, because you have a channel on there. But like, what would be the presets? And I have. How many presets? I have 8 presets in my car. Yeah.
And one of them is 63 Chris Stapleton radio. Right.
Like I said, this we will let. No, we're not editing. Yeah, now I have 9. I actually have 9. That's right.
I'm just playing.
All right, man. You got me there.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
you have 8 presets, and they are
9. No, I'll tell you what they are, and you can tell me what yours are. But so it goes, and they really are kind of in order. So Spectrum, 28, Classic Vinyl, Classic Rewind, Alt Nation. And this just tells you this the kind of the spectrum of mine. And this is the order. I'll go through them. Like, if I don't like to, I'll go to the next one. So Spectrum, Classic Vinyl, Classic Rewind, Alt Nation, The Bridge,
Yeah.
Ozzy's Boneyard,
Oh, okay.
Howard Stern,
Okay.
Chris Stapleton.
Yeah. Thanks for tacking me on the.
But I mean, think about that. You got The Bridge and Ozzy's Boneyard side by side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I heard Steve Earle say one time, somebody asking him what he listened to. He's like, well, it's embarrassing how much I like to listen to myself. But I don't listen to myself. But as far as radio presets, our station's very much in its infancy.
Right.
So we are.
But it doesn't have to just be you. You can curate the playlist, right?
We do, yes.
Right.
And me and my wife and JT Cure is very heavily involved in that. So we all have that on. And we take mental notes and we tweak and we meet about it. And so very much the preset for us right now is just that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we would have, a playlist or something that we would include. My wife is she's very country heavy, 90s. But also she likes a lot of, Beyonce and she has more modern, upbeat, positive feeling stuff. And she
doesn't have Ozzy's Boneyard on?
She doesn't have Ozzy's Boneyard on very much. Me, I'll listen to, if I'm putting music on, just putting music on, not on a preset on the radio, I'm probably listening to Tom Petty,
Wow.
And it doesn't bother me ever to just turn Tom Petty on. And Petty's station even, but also just songs I want to hear.
Yeah. He headlined ACL Fest. It's probably been, he was one of the early years. And I'll never forget, I was side stage and this storm rolled in. And electrical storm.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody, y'all are
They clear the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a curfew and he's the headliner.
Yeah.
And we had a mayor at the time named Will Wynn. And it's, and they're watching the radar, we're listening on the pass and thinking, well, he might come back out, but it's going to be one song. Well, Will Wynn, who's a huge music fan, was there and says, fuck the curfew.
Yeah.
And so we waited this storm out and Petty came back. I was side stage with Ben Harper. Ben's a great friend of mine. And man, it was a spiritual experience. I mean, he just, in having to wait, watch this storm pass, the mayor saying, forget the curfew. When he came back out, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I had a friend of mine tell me a similar story. I don't think it was this festival about Petty, where they were going to come out and they had told the festival that he only gets an hour to play, or he only, and he came out and he was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play a real rock and roll show. And they played for 3 hours and just middle fingers up to the festival. Right. Sorry guys, we're going for it. And the people that had hung over and sat in their cars and waited out the storm, but he said it was like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And he proceeded to play a 3-hour set, which kudos to him. That's a hard one to pony up and do.
I mean, he was
he was a real rock star, like
he was
in the truest sense.
And you don't have to be our age to appreciate that. I mean,
no, not at all.
If you love music and you're 18,
no, this guy was in his 20 or early 30s.
If you're 18 and you're like, if that just dropped on you, you'd be like, what's this? Yeah. Like, this is different.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no one like him.
Yeah.
Or that band. That band is a special band.
I saw on your socials, and I was trying to figure out a way to listen to it in lieu of this conversation, but I don't know how to do that. But you had his guitar player on your series channel.
Yeah.
I never got around.
Mike Campbell.
Yeah. I couldn't figure out how to find it or listen to it.
Yeah. Well, I think if you go to the Sirius app, there's a way you can get into it.
I did all my homework anyway. Yeah. So I'll be patient. I wasn't patient before. I was like, fuck, I got to hurry up, figure this out.
It's just a bunch of us nerding out about guitars. And
and I read some reviews or some of the comments. I mean, you nerded out a lot harder than he did.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I'm just play the guitar.
Right.
And you wanted to say, no, hang on, back up.
Well, I get in a mode when I'm around those guys that are my hero. And Mike is a big hero, both as a songwriter he's probably my favorite guitar player just because I talk about serving the song a lot. He's a guy that he can play anything technically. I don't have the ability that he has in a technical capacity, but he always chooses to serve a song, play a part, find the thing that fits into the song that elevates the song.
Yeah.
And that's what you hear of Mike Campbell on records. And I think it's because he's a songwriter too, not just a guy that plays guitar, But I'm always fascinated about the approach of those guys, but they probably think about it a lot less than I do.
What do you make of country music today?
What do I make of country music?
Yeah, I mean, did you just hear? Look, I love music. I love country music, and Mickey and Willie are great friends of mine, and sort of this outlaw side, but I can also, people, that's that's not country, I'll never, and I will not name names. But Jamie Johnson's a good friend of mine. Right. So we were at this. It was actually here in Austin, and it was a benefit.
Right.
And a guy was coming out, again, will not name, and I'm standing with Jamie. He says, fuck this. I do this for a living. I'm not watching. And he just, bow. I mean, he was, Jamie's pretty outlaw.
Well, he can split on stuff real quick, But
you got, Post Malone made a country record. You got Jelly
Which I think
Roll.
is a good record.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. No, I'm not saying it's shit. I like it.
Yeah.
And I will listen to it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of debate out there of like, well, what's this bubblegum stuff here? And
I think country has always been a very broad spectrum of things. And I think people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, right. That's right.
They think, there's always been Crystal Gale and Johnny Paycheck. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can go back eras, there's always a pop side to country music, and there's always something a little grittier, and then some of it meets in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's all blues based generally. So I just think it's different strokes for different folks, and that's what I think.
Right.
And I think that's okay. I don't think. I don't ever get caught up in like, oh no, I hate that because that's not country.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I do what I like to do, and a lot of what we do is not necessarily country. Right. I think you could make that argument too, easily.
Yep.
But we're influenced by a lot of country music, and we certainly play some songs that can only qualify as country music.
Yep.
But I'm not really a traditional country singer.
Right.
And if you put me next to Alan Jackson or Merle Haggard or George Jones or any of these guys who are the kind of Mount Rushmores of guys that sound like what we think, or Randy Travis, guys that are country music through and through, I don't fit.
Right. Well,
you've
done all right. You've done all right.
Well, I've done all right, and I love all that. You know what I'm saying? So I think my answer to what do I think of country music today? I think country music always evolves, and I think it always turns over. And I think whatever parts of country music are, just like any genre of music, whatever parts of country music are lasting and good will remain lasting and good. Yep. And we'll listen to them and talk about them. As long as there's a genre of country.
I thought Zach Bryan's record this summer was...
I haven't dug in on that one as much. So
I'm late. I'm late to that party. My kids have been listening to him for a couple of years now, and I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah. And I tell you, I don't know. I loved it, and I love his. I do, and I love his story. I mean, this dude was in the Navy 3 years ago.
Yeah,
and now he's playing stadiums.
Yeah, he plays stadiums.
I mean, imagine you're. I always think about what the fuck was that like being 5 years ago. Yeah. You're in the Navy with this guy, and he's like, "Hey, y'all mind if I just sit around and play some songs?" And you're like, just in the Navy, going, "Where'd this guy come from?" I mean, it's. I love the arc of that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
but the rocket ship. If there was one song, and I know this is impossible. Tough question, but if there was one song to you that you have written that is the most special,
one song,
like I said, it's a weird question, but is there one song?
Is there one song? There are a couple. I mean,
it can be a couple
that probably feel real close to home.
Mm-hmm.
The Maggie song about our dog that passed away is one of those. Daddy Doesn't Pray Anymore, which is one of those that I wrote fictitiously and over time became a more real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other day, because we do play some of our songs on our radio channel, Nashville, Tennessee came on, and that song was written in a very specific moment of that 2015 entering the storm period.
Yeah.
And that song feels kind of, close to home a lot.
Yeah. 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 Let's finish up and talk about, we're almost, like I told you, I can't sit. I get, I started tweaking out if I sit for longer than an hour.
You got to go ride or something?
No, I don't. I worked out this morning.
Yeah.
No,
how far did you ride? Did you work out?
No, I was in the gym. But if I don't, first of all, I have to do it in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not good if it gets sort of past noon. My motivation dips and just energy dips, and then I just say, screw it. I don't.
That's me too. If I don't do anything in the morning, I'm kind of done.
I'm the best person in the morning.
Yeah.
I always have been.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up swimming, and I mean, we had 5:30, a.m. practices every day, and so it was, then you're up at 4:30 and having a bite, going to the pool, and I think my clock just got set then. But no, I got my workout done. Now I'm after this, I'll just go see you tonight.
Yeah.
But let's finish talking about, I want to talk about sports and watches. Because and on the sports thing, I multiple people told me you love sports, which.
I do love sports. And what I love about sports.
I can't wait. Go ahead.
What I love about sports is going to the events.
Really?
Themselves.
Interesting.
Maybe more than I like keeping up with a stat or keeping up with a specific player.
You're talking about like going to a football game.
I'm like talking about going to a football game.
Sitting in in the stadium.
Yeah. And I love to take in, because every town is different, the energy of the people.
Yeah, of course.
I like feeling this unified response to things going on.
Yeah.
I like the cultural experience of sports. More than I like to follow sports. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in that way, I'm probably not a traditional fan where I have a team.
Yeah.
I can go enjoy any sport.
Yeah.
If you're witnessing someone pushing themselves.
Yeah.
And you're witnessing high level of anything.
Yeah. And
there's a group of people who are cheering for or against these people.
Right.
And in this very real way.
Yeah.
It's this, it's a unique experience in that way.
I mean, it's to me, what I'm hearing is this is what makes college football, I think, better than professional football.
Right.
I haven't been to, a game in.
Now they pay them a little bit. So
they do, but still
different.
A game in Tuscaloosa or University of Michigan or even here at the University of Texas, we're getting our stuff together. I mean, it's not a, Kyle Field over in College Station. I mean, this shit that's a spiritual experience. Like if people go to those games, and they never forget that.
Right.
Like it's like, whoa, there's 100,000 people.
Yeah. It's a religion.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think you see that at, a Houston Texans game or a Titans game but I mean, that's an interesting take. Okay.
But I also love to go to the towns where they're so ingrained in their team that no matter what happens on the field, like if somebody, let's say we're at a baseball game and someone was clearly out at first,
right,
but it was against their team.
Yeah,
straight boos, yelling profanities at the umpire. Just like, just so chanting. Like everything is for our team. Period. We don't care about the rules.
Right.
Of the game, or we can't, like I enjoy seeing that level. And I also enjoy seeing the sportsman level where there's some towns that can very much like hold their breath when somebody on the other team is hurt and then clap for him if he gets up and walks off. I enjoy both of those.
I can relate to that. You mentioned, which I was so happy to hear you say, and just because I've tracked the whole story, you mentioned that you woke up thinking about Pete Rose, who of course passed in recent days, and then I asked if you. I had just finished this docuseries on, I think it's on HBO Max, which I hard to watch, tough to watch, but I learned a lot. I didn't know this was a Cincinnati kid. I knew the stuff that people read about, and I have my own view of how he was, I think, unfairly punished, but it was sad. And then I was, when I got the news, and I was in Europe at the time, so news travels a little slower. I was like, of his passing, I thought, God, that's what a shitty. I mean, you just wonder how somebody goes out, and so many questions for him. But it was interesting you said that.
Well, I grew up in an era when Pete Rose was, somebody that we all impersonated as kids in Little League. We all slid head first because Pete Rose did. That's how Pete Rose did it. That was the way to do it. And the notion of hustling, was very much attached to him in the way he played and the way he approached things. And, I think a lot about what his offenses were. Maybe I may get hate or love for this. I don't know. But he, as far to my knowledge, he bet on baseball. Yeah. And that was wrong.
Yep.
Because those were the rules. But he bet on himself to win.
Right.
And I woke up thinking a lot about, it feels like even the contracts are betting on themselves these days, like there's incentives to win. So I don't know. He was banned for life from baseball. And I think that is, his life is over now. So maybe we should consider.
I think we will.
Letting his legacy of what he was as a player get recognized.
Well, I thought the series, and I would encourage you to watch it. They talk a lot about that, and this is, and you never know how they edit these things and how it all comes together. But there were opportunities, it seemed, for him to mend those fences with Major League Baseball and the commissioner, and but he was a tough, stubborn guy, and kind of
right. He was a complicated character.
Yeah,
I think that probably hurt.
And if you believe what you watch in the series, you're like, boy, he was close. But then he went off and said something crazy, or told the commissioner to pound sand. I don't know. And then it just started the cycle all over. And
I'm not necessarily advocating for him as a person. Maybe I think I'm advocating for his career, and then for those of us who were kids and grew up kind of. Being influenced by that. Well,
look, as somebody who's been...
I'm advocating for the fans.
Yeah.
I think.
He played for the... he gave 100% for the fans.
Right.
And if you watch the series, I've been the subject to many of these, you just try to sit back. It's tough to do when you're the focus, and that's why I love these. I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this, and then I'm going to get to the end, and I'm going to just ask myself, all right, well, what's the question? Should he be in the Hall of Fame? Should he have been reinstated? Just as a fan or just as a viewer, I say, okay, Lance, what do you think?
Yeah.
And over the 5 or 6 episodes, I said, look, I think Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I know. Then that's probably not a popular answer, but then I can go on and say, well, I think actually the people who were voting for those players. Probably the wrong people. That's my opinion. I think they should be voted on by their peers.
Even if you have to put a little blurb about.
Sure. Well, you would have to.
If there has to be a footnote attached to it.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. And I think that's fair.
Yep.
But I don't think the influence on the game or the actual, meaning of their efforts to the game don't deserve some kind of recognition in that way,
Yeah. Well, you spend plenty of time on planes and buses, so you'll have time to watch.
I'll contemplate it. Yeah.
Well, you start it. If it sucks, then you don't have to finish it. But use your guy. I thought it was. Everybody that listens to the show knows I'm a junkie for documentaries and kind of real life historical shit. Like I So I'll watch kind of anything.
Did you watch the Arnold one?
Of course.
That was pretty good.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I mean, yeah. Arnold was, that was an Arnold production.
Right, of himself.
I mean, you have to give some, leeway to the director and the other. I mean, you can't just make a puff piece, but if you're involved, like the one I did for ESPN, the 30 for 30, I had no control. So I think if you're going to tell a true story and you're going to let the world decide, well, you got to say, look, I don't have any control over the edit, and I'm going to make myself available. And then 1 + 1 = 2, which is the rawest, most transparent view that the audience could and should get. Like Jordan's documentary,
right.
People loved it, right?
Right.
But Michael had Final Cut, right?
Right.
And so I hear they're doing a whopper of a Jerry Jones one. Right? Jerry's involved. All right. You just hear that like, oh shit, this is gonna get saucy.
I met Jerry Jones one time.
Yeah.
And man, he was just an interesting character.
Larger than life. Yeah. Right. So, anyways, check it out. We're going to end talking about watches because I know you love watches. I love watches.
Yeah.
I told Morgan earlier because we were talking about you.
Oddly, I'm not even wearing one today. But yes,
that's all right. Yeah. But I know the reason I know you love watches because I see you wearing them a lot. But one time y'all were in Dallas and Jason, your tour manager, called me and he knew I liked watches. He said, you said you got this guy in Dallas, that helps you get these watches. Yeah. I said, oh, yeah. I said, well, shit, this guy must be into watches. But what I said to Morgan is the thing I love about watches is, other than wearing them, and I think they're cool, is I love giving watches and I love getting watches. Yeah. I love watches as gifts. So all of my kids, when they graduate high school, I give a watch that's engraved, and that's, and they're cool. I think, and they're typically watches that I've had for a few years that I've worn, that you just sort of pass down. Right. Right. In the class, I'm a big Submariner guy. Right. As I think you are too. Yeah. And I just think it's an amazing gift, but I've also loved getting watches as gifts. Yeah. In fact, I'll show you one. My
wife has given me watches as gifts.
So check this watch out. Do you need my reading glasses? Or you're going to be able to? So I wear this watch all the time. Okay. I was given this watch in 2003.
It's a Pepsi GMT.
Yep. You turn around. So Robin Williams, who would always come.
Oh, wow.
Would always come to the tour. He loved cycling. Loved me, and I loved him.
Oh, that's a Coke. Very cool.
He brought me this watch to Paris at the 2003 Tour de France. I wear this watch 90% of the time.
That's incredible.
And most of the time, people just say, "Oh, cool watch." I say, "Yeah, thank you." Yeah. But
what's on the back of it feels?
It's one of one.
Yeah.
Right. And so Robin and I established this super fun relationship, and we would travel and go ride bikes and just fuck around. And he'd always bring me a watch. I mean, these neat, not all Submariners, but just these rare, like he'd go out. One time we were in Sun Valley and he said, I'm going to go into town. I said, well, I'm going to take a nap because I love
naps?
I love naps. Yeah. Like I love sleeping and I love naps. I said, all right. He said, all right. So I go take my nap and he comes back and he said, oh, I bought you a watch. I was like, what? You just walking around Sun Valley and you roll up and he said, yeah. It was this really cool Gerard Genta Swiss maker that it's just a funky watch, funky mechanics. Yeah. But that you get, I mean, I'm super passionate about it, but I know that's,
I like to hunt too.
Yeah.
That's, much like with guitars, like I like hunting for something. I think maybe I like to hunt as much as I like the thing.
To get.
Yeah.
Right.
So I enjoy
the pursuit.
The pursuit.
Yep.
And that's part of the game of it a little bit. Yeah.
I saw, if you want to hunt, I just saw an auction just popped up. The first Submariner that was on the moon.
I saw that. I sent it to you.
Yeah. I thought the price was,
I didn't pay attention to what the price was.
The starting price. I thought, that's kind of a deal.
Yeah. What was the start? I don't know what the
It
start.
started, but 37,000.
Yeah.
But they always put the plus thing at the end of the 37,000, so it could add it.
Plus $120,000 for auction fees or whatever.
And a 0 or 2
Yeah.
when the bidding gets up there.
Yeah.
But that's pretty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are cool pieces of history. I like how the watches have traveled through history and the things that they mark. I was speaking with an astronaut in Houston. I was like, did they let you guys keep the watches that you wear on the mission? He's like, no, they don't let us keep them anymore. I was like, well, that's crazy.
Right.
They don't let them keep the watches anymore. That used to be a thing with the astronauts is they kept the watches that they use on the mission, and then they even gave him like a gold watch to commemorate it or something. It was a very different time, I think. I'm here on this show to advocate for astronauts to get to keep their watches that they
dear NASA, for anybody that's NASA who's listening, but by the way, you never know. They're just down the road. Chris, thanks for doing this. Looking forward to tonight. You've been a great friend. Your wife's lovely. By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't, Anna says to me last night, I think you should just have Morgan on the show. I said, what? Well, so, she wanted me just to
skip me and
skip you.
She'd be more interesting to me.
She's
a lot better at, I'll give you, I think people feel like I'm not the greatest interview because I
think they'll be surprised after this hour.
Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, she's a pull no punches person. So
yeah, which is the best kind.
If you can talk her into an interview, you good luck.
Yeah, well, that'll be part 2. But anyways, all right, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being you.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that up.
Yeah.
All right.